What's up, listeners? It's Andrea. Today, we review the best and worst of Season 4. We look forward to what's next in Season 5. And we ask the question, do you think the show has already peaked? Come nerd out with us.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
Hey, I'm your co-host, Andrea. Shereese, today we are talking Season 4 Wrap Party. Woo! We did it! We did it! We got through Season 4. What are your overall feelings about being done with Season 4 or Season 4 as a whole?
I think Season 4 as a whole had some really good episodes in it. And I think it had some, not so great episodes in it. I would say just going through the 4 seasons, this season to me probably had the most interesting alien concepts that we've had so far in the show at all. I think we've had the most times where we're like, oh man, that's fascinating. What if an alien could do that or could be like that or could live in 2-dimensional space or whatever. So I definitely feel like the show is just, it's improving in its world building, in the way that the aliens are described. The creativity level is going through the roof. And the show is just getting better and better. I'm also a bit sad that Season 3 is gone because almost every one of those episodes, I was like, oh, this was good. Oh, this was good. And Season 4 was a little bit of a roller coaster. Towards the end, I was like, okay, they're really getting good. And then towards the very end, I was like, oof, they're bad. They're not good. So I don't know what happened, but yeah. What about you? Your overall thoughts on being done with Season 4 or what happened in Season 4?
I mean, I actually was really looking forward to Season 4 the most because it's my favorite season because my favorite episodes are in Season 4. Or some of my favorite episodes are in Season 4. I love Devil's Due, and there's a bunch of episodes there. To be honest, Season 3, I feel like going back, it's I feel like it was the strongest season. And we kind of said that at the Season 3 wrap party. We're like, man, I feel like we kind of have
we peaked.
We peaked. Yeah. And we didn't realize we had peaked. And then you look back and you're like, yeah, there I was. Deja Q is my favorite episode. And that's in Season 3. But we have some, Q pops by for a visit. We do have really interesting concepts that they didn't have the luxury of kind of fleshing out those ideas when you're going for big battle scenes. But Season 4 is now comfortable enough in the series that they're able to do these kind of cool concepts where you're like, oh yeah, these were almost like you're looking at the B-sides of the greatest hits, where it's these are some of the deep cuts that were really interesting. And I really, really liked Season 4 as a whole.
Yeah, same. So speaking of Season 4, what were some of your best moments or best episodes, favorites? Actually, no, let me change that. Let's start with worst, because you know how we like to start with the bad side. Okay, what were the worst episodes or worst moments for you in Season 4?
The worst episodes for me were Night Terrors. When Troy is talking to those telepathic aliens in her sleep, and nobody can sleep, and it sucks. And she's just flying on this in front of this green screen. Poor Marina Sirtis. That one is one of the episodes that I don't like at all about Season 4. I'm not a huge Klingon person. So honestly, Redemption Part 1, it wasn't my least favorite episode, but it's one that I don't go back and watch because it's just super Klingon-y and super battle-y and super, honor and let's just punch each other for fun. And that's not really for me, what feels like really good writing. What are some of your least favorite episodes of Season 4?
So for me, I had 3 that I was just ugh. The first was Family. And I think,
oh my God, I forgot about Family. God, that sucked.
Yeah. And I don't even know if I would have said it was a bad episode, except for the fact that it was right after Best of Both Worlds, which was a great episode.
Which was the best one.
Yeah, which was the best one. So I think that contrast made Family seem even worse than it maybe would have been if they put it in the middle of the season. But it was just not a good episode. There was nothing about space or Star Trek at all in the episode. It was weird. And then comparing that episode to what Picard is now, I'm just what was we just didn't need this episode. It should have just been deleted. Another episode that was not my favorite was Suddenly Human. That's the one with Jono who gets kidnapped and raised. And then he's his grandmother wants him to come back or whatever. I just thought that episode was extremely problematic. And then the last one is In Theory, which was when Data gets a girlfriend. I just think
Oh my God.
That was dumb. I just think that didn't make any sense.
We reviewed that episode like 2 weeks ago and I already removed it from my like data banks. Like I was like, yeah, this is dumb. That's right. That's right. We've got Jenna, the most clueless person of ever, trying to make a relationship happening with an android. You're so right. It's really dumb. It's dumb. I know there's an episode that I think we are sort of split on, and that's Data's Day. That one for me is it really is just like a journal of Data's day, like it's just a day in the life, but it's got like this wedding drama with Keiko and Miles, and he gets to sort of explore humanity. And it's just, I'm like, look, I'm here for the science fiction. Okay. I'm not here for like Miles and Keiko's wedding drama. I don't give any F's at all about that. Yeah. And like nothing really happens. And like that episode I can really do without, but I have spoken to some people who are like, I love that episode. It's like this exploration of humanity through this lens of someone who's not human. And it's really cool. And I'm like, yeah, skip. I could just totally skip that one. But if we're going to talk about these episodes, we got to go into some of the favorites. Like what are some of your favorites? Like maybe top 3 or top 4 favorites of season 4?
Yeah, so I just have one top, I think, for season 4 of favorite, and that is Best of Both Worlds Part 2. It was great. It was great.
It's Locutus of Borg.
It's Locutus. He's about to kill everybody. Somehow we rescue him at the last second.
It sure is. Yeah.
Data's involved in it. I mean, it was such a anxiety-inducing episode where you're like, oh no, like the Borg are coming and there's nothing you can do to stop them. And they're just blowing ships up left and right, like nothing, ripping through them like tissue paper. And you're just thinking there is no way that the humans can win. And I really appreciate stories that do that. I watch a ridiculous amount of television and movies. So I notice the formulas. I know the tropes. I can still enjoy them though, but I can usually guess what's going to happen. I love it when it's something where I cannot guess what's going to happen. Now, I did guess that in the end, somehow it's going to all be okay, but I could not figure out from point A to point B how they were going to make that right. And that kind of stuff, I love that kind of storytelling where I really can't guess how they're going to make it all come together. I really love.
That's amazing. I mean, it's so funny to think like, Best of Both Worlds Part 2, which is the wrap up to the Locutus of Borg storyline, is at the very top of this season. And here we are at the very end of the season. And it feels like it's years away where I'm like, oh my God, we reviewed that like 2 years ago. And it's funny to think it's like that. It's just the beginning of this season, which blows my mind. And I love that episode so much for all the reasons that you just said. I got to say, I have a couple of favorites. Devil's Due is a really fun episode. I love that episode so much. I go back and rewatch it. I think Ardra is a wonderful counterpoint to Picard. She's just as confident. She's just as sure as herself, but for all the wrong reasons. And it's wonderful. And it's a fun watch. It's really, really fun. I also like The Nth Degree a lot. I like the concept a great deal of being explorers of other life forms, but not going to them. You're basically smartifying somebody to have the technology to like bring the aliens to you to get to meet. And I think that it's really lovely. And I'm really glad that we got to see Barclay, have his flowers for Algernon moment where yes, he wasn't annoying. It was fun to watch him sort of peak and then kind of come back down and be like, now I'm back to this like sort of nervous Nelly, but that's a fun episode. Cupid was fun just because, now we're Robin Hood in Sherwood Forest and it's very Ren Fair and it's really fun. Those ones are super duper fun, but I would say of season 4, my favorites would be Best of Both Worlds Part 2. And I think Devil's Due. Oh God, we can't forget about Clues though, too. That's the one where they were unconscious for 30 seconds, but it wasn't 30 seconds. It was 24 hours. And Beverly was like, my moss is growing too fast. And Data's clearly hiding something. Like those are like peak Star Trek, The Next Generation episodes, in my opinion. Just really, really fun.
Yeah. You mentioned Ardra and I made a little list of some of my favorite aliens of this season, just as far as costume and makeup. I didn't even go to like kind of the concept of the aliens. Cause I would say the aliens in Nth Degree, the 2-dimensional aliens, like there's some really interesting aliens in season 4, the Trills, fascinating, like super interesting. But I picked some aliens just based on their costume and makeup because I obsess about costume and makeup.
I know you do.
And Ardra totally made the list. I was obsessed with everything Ardra did, like everything she looked like, everything she wore. She was just like, that makeup was great. The earrings were great. The dresses were great. And it totally fit the personality that she was bringing to the table. So Ardra was top on my list. Another top on my list was the aliens from Peliar-Zel, which was the episode with the Trill, the host. And they were the ones who there was aliens on the planet and then aliens on the 2 moons. And they had that like crest thing between their nose and their forehead. And that was just so cool and so beautiful and just made me feel like those aliens had a whole culture and society and backstory. Somehow that makeup communicated to me that there's a whole backstory here that we don't even need to talk about because we know it exists. So those are two of my top aliens from the season, just based purely on how cool they looked.
See, I had a couple of those too. I had some favorite aliens and maybe least favorite aliens, but I think based on the way they looked, Ardra is like way up there because she looks human with like some ridges on her nose. So it's like, as far as makeup, Ardra was one of my favorite aliens and she was my favorite bad guy because she's the bad guy you love to love. She's so cocky and fun to watch. She's like the outrageous Okana, but not cringy, like outrageous Okana. She's just delightful. She's just a delight on screen and she just takes up the entire space beautifully. I mean, the actress who plays Ardra just absolutely killed it. But I have some other favorite aliens not because of like makeup or like how they present visually, but the concept behind it. So for me, Galaxy's Child is really cool. It's like kind of like that space slug that they accidentally killed and then it suctioned onto the Enterprise. It's like, what a brilliant concept. Who's thinking of this? And this is why season 4 felt like the B-sides of the greatest hits, because you have like the Romulans, you have the Klingons, you've got the Ferengi, and you've got explosions and you've got ships blowing up. And that's like all, people think about science fiction. That's like the top stuff that you think of right off the top. But then you get to like explore this really cool shit, like in The Loss, where Troy loses her empathic abilities is because the Enterprise is being carried along like a drift with these 2-dimensional life forms that are trying to go into this like vibrational string. And it could bring the Enterprise with it and then destroy the Enterprise. So there's a threat there. But just the idea that you're looking at 2-dimensional life forms in a 3-dimensional space. It's just super, super cool. I loved that a lot. I gotta say, one of my least favorite was honestly the Trill. And it was the Trill because the concept, again, is really cool. It's a symbiotic life form. But just the presentation of the Trill was really creepy and gross to me. It just looked like a shriveled up sea cucumber with like neon rings on it or something. And I was like, ew, that's not, and it was cool looking. Yeah. And the fact that like Beverly had to handle it with her gloves and she's like, I'm picking up my lover that looks like kind of a shriveled up, deflated like penis is like, ugh. It's not a good look. It is not a good look. I wish they would have done something that looked like more like a sparkle of light or something a little bit less tangible than this like creepy old handbag. It just wasn't my favorite.
In addition to that, I think the Trill is like a fascinating species as well. But yeah, in addition to the creepy like grub worm look that they gave to the parasite, we also had the creepy grub worm sticking out of the stomach, like a scene from Alien. We had that at the beginning of that episode. Yeah. And it was like, and then we also had the whole, this guy Beverly's in love with really is like a symbiote and then can like pop in and out of different bodies. And now he's in Riker and now he's in this other person. And so along with that concept is this concept of your lover is like body jumping. And that's also very disorienting. And like not that romantic. So yeah, totally. I could see that. Are there any other aliens that made it to the bottom of your list?
Not really. I mean, I think it was just, again, like it's just fascinating concepts of aliens, fascinating concepts of like war and interplay between, it's sort of like a study on like human interaction between, you've got there were a few aliens in a few episodes that had these like very kind of like twisted roundabout ways to get their means to their ends. And it was like just really, really great writing all around. I think season 4 is so freaking strong in their writing. Do you have any least favorite alien makeup?
I do. I don't have most or least favorite aliens as far as their concept. Although I do want to add to your list of the alien that Geordi kind of turned into in what was the name of that episode? Identity Crisis. Yeah, that was another, like playing off of what you just said, that was another alien that kind of goes a roundabout way to make more aliens. It was a little bit virusy in that way that it co-opted the whole body and transformed it into some kind of alien creature. That was super fascinating. Super fascinating.
Totally.
So for me, I have some worst aliens as far as makeup goes. And Dr. Timison, who was in the episode Half a Life and the love interest of Lwaxana Troy, makes the top of my list with his black veiny situation.
Yeah, that was not cool.
Kind of made my skin crawl. And I think it could have maybe looked cool in the 90s, but with this HD, it just looks like I just want to peel those prosthetics off and just start over. Even if it was, the vein thing, it just didn't work for me. And the second on my list is Gul Macet. When the Cardassians are introduced for the first time in the episode The Wounded, Gul Macet, who's like the commander or whatever of the ship, has these mustaches like glued to his cheeks. And again, it made my skin crawl. And I was just like, can we just not have that? Thankfully, next time we see the Cardassians, that nonsense is gone. So those were the bottom of my list, just as far as looks alone, without even talking about concepts. I really liked all the concepts. I don't think I had any aliens that I thought these aliens are dumb.
Or like horrible.
No.
Okay, well, that's season 4. Let's look forward into season 5. What are some episodes we are really looking forward to in season 5?
Okay, so season 5, I'm so excited about because some of my favorite episodes of all time are in season 5.
Ooh.
Of all time. And so I wrote down 4 because these are the 4 that I will watch over and over and over and over. The first is Conundrum. This is when they all lose their memories. And then when they come back, there's like this new first officer who we never knew of before.
Yes.
This is the episode I always think Clues is, but it's not. It's this one.
Yes. This is the Sumerian Sunset episode.
This is the Sumerian Sunset
We should do a Sumerian Sunset like cocktail on Instagram. I have a drink that I make that changes color because it changes with the pH. And I think that would be really cool. We should totally put that up and have everybody get to have their own little Sumerian sunset.
I agree. That episode is one of my favorites. It's a mystery. Everybody changes roles on the ship, which is so much fun. And they're all trying to piece it together. I love it. It's like quintessential Sherlock Holmes in the sense that we're trying to figure out the bottom of this mystery. But at the same time, there's like a war going on. It's just great. It's one of my favorites. Another one of my favorite episodes is called The Next Phase. It's when Ensign Ro and Geordi get out of phase with the rest of the ship, but Ro thinks they're dead.
Yes.
And Geordi's like, no, this is some kind of scientific snafu. And basically they're trying to like find their way back to the real world. Love this episode. Like, it's so, I love it. It's so interesting. Like, how would you behave if you thought you were dead and you were a ghost haunting your crew? How would you behave if you thought some science just went wrong and you had to fix it? So great. Like, I love this episode. Then the other one is Inner Light, which is a fan favorite, I think. And the Time's Arrow, which is a favorite of mine because it's a data-centric episode in just the most fascinating way.
Yeah, no, this one's a fun one because we get to have Time's Arrow Part 1 as our season finale for season 5. And that's the one where they go back to like the 1850s in San Francisco and we meet Guinan. So we know she's a very long-lived species and we have proof of this. And that one's a really, really fun one. That's definitely a favorite among most TNG fans, but we can't talk about season 5 without talking about Inner Light and just like how beautiful that is. And in case you don't remember what Inner Light is, it's the one where Picard gets knocked unconscious and his consciousness gets sort of transferred to this satellite. And he lives an entire life as like a member of this species that's dying because their sun's about to go supernova. And that's that species' way of, even though they've been long dead for millennia, to like show people that they lived. And it's so touching and so beautiful. And I can't watch that episode without crying at the end. I really can't.
Same. It's like a mind bending time capsule is what this series has created. And by the end of it, you're just like, what just happened? It's beautiful. I can't watch it without crying. It's not Trek really in the sense that it's not like alien battles or whatever, but it's so Trek. It's so Trek in the sense of a speculative universe, an alternate existence. And what would that look like? And it's beautiful.
Yeah. I'm going to looking forward into season 5. There's a few things I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to welcoming a new member of the crew who's going to be a thorn in most people's sides. Ensign Ro is coming aboard. And that actress just is so masterful in her portrayal of Ensign Ro. And Ensign Ro just sort of gets everybody's hackles up, but she really is that person who shakes things up when things have gotten a little comfortable with everybody on the ship. And she is just this sort of antagonist that is provocative. And we do see in Conundrum, she and Riker forget that they hate each other's guts and end up sort of finding some mutual ground that they can find together. There's a couple of really fun ones that I really love. A Matter of Time pops up to me. That's the one where that the like time this professor from the 26th century comes aboard and he starts like stealing shit, and it turns out he's from like the 22nd century or whatever. It's really cool. That one's a fun episode. It's sort of a low stakes episode, but it's just a fun one to watch. The Perfect Mate is really fun. That's the one where we have Famke Jensen come on as like that pod woman that like mates perfectly with anybody that she's like the perfect mate for anybody she speaks to. And she can kind of blend her personality. That one's really fun, even though I think it has the Ferengi in it, which are not my favorite. But I gotta say, one of my all-time favorite, and this is another tug at my heartstrings episode. And it comes like 2 episodes before the Inner Light. So it's like, we're going to have like tug at your heartstrings month. But it's Iborg, where we meet Hugh.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right?
Yes. Yeah.
It's just so beautiful. And you see this Borg and like his development from being a collective minded, like hive mind being to being individualistic, and then having to like go back. It's like, oh God, it's so hard to watch. I remember the first time I watched that episode as a kid back in 92. And I remember crying as a little girl. I remember crying as a little girl, like watching this person who like has to do what's best for his race, but not what's best for himself. It just blows my mind. I also look forward to The Game, which I love and hate that episode in equal measures because it's like creepy the way that they play the game. It all sounds like
and awful.
It's interesting in theory. Like the theory is interesting, but the execution to make everybody sound like they're orgasming every time they play this game is just so it's just so cringy to me. I'm like, God, okay. That I
would have watched this episode totally differently this time.
You never saw it that way? Oh my God. Even as a kid, I was like, it felt like as a little kid, you see like a little kid in a movie where they walk in on somebody having sex and they go, what's that man doing to that woman or something? It feels very much like that, where even as a little kid, I was like, why are they making those sounds? Like, and I did read years ago how many people hated the game because it's just such a like overtly sexualized, like exclamation of like pleasure at this game that like if they would have twisted it just a teeny tiny little bit, it would be way more like palatable. But the idea of like mind control through this is really, really freaking cool. And Ashley Judd is like a guest star
in it, which is cool.
And she's adorable. And Wesley comes back to visit.
He comes back, which is
great. So fun.
They are super cute. Like Ashley Judd and Wesley, like they're super cute. And I think that's probably my favorite part of the episode. And that they're the ones who come to save the day. Like we're kind of throwing back to season 1 when Wesley Crusher saves the day all the time.
He's like, I guess I'll save the day again.
I came to visit just so I could save the day, but now I got to get back to the academy. I don't remember the episode super well. I tend to skip that one because I do think it's creepy. But
it is,
but we can't skip it. So I'll rewatch it with fresh new eyes. You and I don't have the luxury to skip that episode.
Yeah. Well, there is also the episode in this season that like we do get to see Wesley a couple of times in season 5. So we see him in the game, and then we see him in the First Duty, which I think I said that's the one where like Deanna has to like learn how to send people to their death. I don't think that's right. The First Duty,
I think that's the First Duty at the academy. I think
yes, the First Duty is the
season 6.
Maybe, yeah. Gosh, it might be. Oh man, we have to wait even longer for her to become even more awesome. Yeah. Well, the First Duty is the Starfleet, like the Colbert starburst disaster that like ended up with the death of like somebody in the academy, and they have this whole investigation. And Picard said the first duty of every Starfleet officer is to the truth, and like that's a great episode.
Right in the middle of it.
Yeah. And it's perfect to see Wesley being like an angsty teen.
Yeah.
And it's about time because he's like an angsty 22-year-old by the time this episode rolls around. But whatever. I mean, it's fun. Season 5 is so fun. I really look forward to it.
Well, one thing we're not looking forward to in season 5 is episodes like Darmok and things where we're like, However, I mean, I think this is kind of the game we're playing now. It's this roller coaster ride where we get these episodes that are so freaking good. And then we get other episodes, which maybe okay, but compared to the really, really good ones, you're like, what's this? But even in those episodes, so much is wonderful. Like so much of the costume, the sets, the makeup, the just like so much is just beautiful and polished.
Yeah.
That I think we're going to have a lot of grace.
Yeah. Yeah. I think season 5 is going to be awesome. So now that we've sort of wrapped season 4 and said goodbye to season 4, and we're ready to jump in to season 5 with all the good, the bad, and the overly sexy games.
The good, the bad, and the sexy.
Yeah, the good, the bad, and the weirdly orgasmic faces. Now we can actually jump into Redemption Part 2. And like kind of finish up the storyline that we ended with that cliffhanger from season 4 with, you know, this Romulan Tasha Yar showing up and like what's going to happen there. Now I think we can like officially kind of close the door on season 4 and open up season 5.
Yep. Sounds like a plan. So next week, we're going to be going over season 5, episode 1, Redemption Part 2, getting rid of this whole discommendation situation with Worf, wrapping up that storyline from like season 3.
Yep.
And moving on with our lives. So join us.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much for listening. Congratulations. We made it through season 4. Let's jump into season 5 and we will see you all next week. Thanks, guys.
Bye. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at the TNGpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.